should not give up, and we should not allow the problem to defeat us. Let us sacrifice our today so that our children can have a better tomorrow. You have to dream before your dreams can come true. Excellence is a continuous process and not an accident. Science is a beautiful gift to humanity. We should not distort it. No religion has mandated killing others as a requirement for its sustenance or promotion. You see, God helps only people who work hard. That principle is very clear. Do we not realize that self-respect comes with self-reliance? Poetry comes from the highest happiness or the deepest sorrow. Unless India stands up to the world, no one will respect us. In this world, fear has no place. Only strength respects strength. Ultimately, education in its real sense is the pursuit of truth. It is an endless journey through knowledge and enlightenment. Great teachers emanate out of knowledge, passion and compassion. Be more dedicated to making solid achievements than in running after swift but synthetic happiness. Regarding marriage, somehow, it didn't happen. One fellow in such a big family not getting married is not an issue. All wars signify the failure of conflict resolution mechanisms, and they need post-war rebuilding of faith, trust and confidence. We must get rid of fossil fuels by developing injection systems for automobiles, which can run on biofuel. Economy forced me to become a vegetarian, but I finally started liking it. Widespread use of antibiotics promotes the spread of antibiotic resistance. Smart use of antibiotics is the key to controlling its spread. Man needs his difficulties because they are necessary to enjoy success. To succeed in your mission, you must have single-minded devotion to your goal. If 4 things are followed, having a great aim, acquiring knowledge, hard work, and perseverance, then anything can be achieved. To become unique, the challenge is to fight the hardest battle which anyone can imagine until you reach your destination. Climbing to the top demands strength, whether it is to the top of Mount Everest or to the top of your career. Life is a difficult game. You can win it only by retaining your birthright to be a person. Life is a difficult game. You can win it only by retaining your birthright to be a person. The youth need to be enabled to become job generators from job seekers. Great dreams of great dreamers are always transcended. Creativity is the key to success in the future, and primary education is where teachers can bring creativity in children at that level. Those who cannot work with their hearts achieve but a hollow, half-hearted success that breeds bitterness all around. As a child of God, I am greater than anything that can happen to me. In India we only read about death, sickness, terrorism, crime. I was a disadvantaged child from a non-educated family, yet I had the advantage of being in the company of great teachers. One of the very important characteristics of a student is to question. Let the students ask questions. I firmly believe that unless one has tasted the bitter pill of failure, one cannot aspire enough for success. Developing nations want to become developed nations. Rameswaram has, since antiquity, been an important pilgrimage destination. My 2020 vision for India is to transform it into a developed nation. That cannot be abstract, it is a lifeline. India has to be transformed into a developed nation, a prosperous nation and a healthy nation, with a values system. India's trade deficit is because of excessive import over exports. My hair grows and grows, you cannot stop it. That fellow grows, it grows wild. The government, whether state or central, is elected. That means we have a responsibility to elect the right kind of leaders. India should walk on her own shadow. We must have our own development model. When a nation is surrounded by weaponized nations, she has to equip herself. The Bay of Bengal is hit frequently by cyclones. The months of November and May, in particular, are dangerous in this regard. Wherever I go, as long as I get a hot vegetable dish, I am okay. If I am in Gujarat, I have Gujarati food. If it's Shillong, it's northeastern. The president's post should not be politicized. Once a president is elected, he is above politics. India can live without nuclear weapons. That's our dream, and it should be the dream of the US also. My view is that at a younger age your optimism is more and you have more imagination, etc. You have less bias. What is politics? Political system is equal to development politics plus political politics. For me, there are two types of people, the young and the experienced. Nations consist of people, and with their effort, a nation can accomplish all it could ever want. Building capacity dissolves differences. It irons out inequalities. There are a number of women who have brought about immense change in society. We must think and act like a nation of 1 billion people and not like that of 1 million people. Dream, dream, dream. Medical costs are of concern, both in developing and developed countries. While children are struggling to be unique, the world around them is trying all means to make them look like everybody else. How accurately can the law fix the crime? There has to be a mechanism for very fast action. The law is like this: catch them and punish them. All the scientists and technologists should work in appropriate region, specifically the rural technologies, to transform Indian rural sector. I was in high school when Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru unfurled India's flag in New Delhi. We should remember that there are nations which meet more than 30 to 60% of their power requirements through the nuclear power system. Every nation has to follow a certain policy: commercial, trade, various other types of policies. There is not enough funding for basic sciences in India. We have to invest in a big way, and I am pushing that idea. The wealth of information now available at the click of a finger amazes me. New markets could be created by rural potentials, which could lead to rise in the employment. Chemistry can be a good and bad thing. Chemistry is good when you make love with it. Chemistry is bad when you make crack with it. Well, we're living in a material world, and I'm a material girl, or boy. Now that I'm a parent, I understand why my father was in a bad mood a lot. With the amount of money I have, it's difficult raising children the way I was raised. A lot of critics object to what I do, but I got into comedy to make people laugh, and I've always worked hard. 6th grade was a big time in my childhood of hoops and friendship, and coming up with funny things. I sing seriously to my mom on the phone. To put her to sleep, I have to sing Maria from West Side Story. When I hear her snoring, I hang up. My comedy is different every time I do it. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Kids end up seeing my movies anyway, but some of the mothers get mad at me, so I figured I'd make one that I can't get yelled at for. God gave me some weird, beautiful scent that makes men and women go crazy. People compare it to Carvel. It is a whale of a smell. I still get very scared when I step in front of a live audience. I grew up cursing a lot. It felt natural. My parents told me to stop. When the kids are laughing in the audience, I tear up. I'm so happy I did a nice thing. Feels good to try, but playing a father, I'm getting a little older. I see now that I'm taking it more serious, and I do want that lifestyle. In high school I wanted to be a rock star and was in a lot of bands. I wasn't a kid growing up thinking, one day I'll get an Oscar and make a speech. That wasn't on my mind. I go to sleep thinking about my kids being spoiled, and I wake up thinking about it. When I was younger and did a stand-up gig, it would take me 2 weeks to recover. Sometimes I'd get so panicked that I would stutter. SNL is a home. You've got all of your brothers and sisters there, and it's a great time. My name is. I'm not particularly talented. I'm not particularly good looking. And yet I'm a multimillionaire. Well, I have a microphone and you don't, so you will listen to every damn word I have to say. I had my moments of being humiliated, and then I had moments of doing something humiliating. I'm glad I lived out both roles. Sir, one more comment like that and I will strangle you with my microphone wire. Most of the stuff I do on the show comes out of me just trying to make my friends laugh. I never had a speech from my father, this is what you must do or shouldn't do, but I just learned to be led by example. My father wasn't perfect. I definitely connected to the fact that life gets out of control and you end up doing things and wishing you were doing other things instead. I've always liked older ladies, ever since my mother would have been a Branth at our house. My father used to wear the same pants for like a week. I'm 31 now. I think I'm beginning to understand what life is, what romance is, and what a relationship means. When I do stand-up shows at colleges, girls will talk to me after the show, and that always feels good. I like talking to them. When I take my kid to school, all the parents stop and stare. I sang a song at my sister's wedding. My mother forced me into that, too. But that one felt all right. We just bought this house. It's too big. It's like 400,000 square feet, or something. We got an indoor lake and ski slope in the house. It's just too big. I was raised by a mother who told me I was great every day of my life. My sisters are stronger and my brother's bigger than me. I've always had lots of friends and my house was the house they all hung out at. I was just a young guy who was excited to become a comedian and an actor, and I just wanted to get to do what I got to do. In one day, I have times where I'm feeling great. I feel like I love my life. And then 2:30 rolls around and I'm the angriest man alive. My wife sees it. I prefer musicals, because I am the best dancer who ever lived. The best plies, the best sachets, and by far the best smelling capezios. My grandmother used to embarrass me more, when she would pick me up from school wearing a big fuzzy hat. I didn't like that. The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. In the depth of winter I finally learned that there was in me an invincible summer. A man without ethics is a wild beast loosed upon this world. Men must live and create. Live to the point of tears. Nobody realizes that some people expend tremendous energy merely to be normal. To be happy we must not be too concerned with others. I know of only one duty, and that is to love. He who despairs of the human condition is a coward, but he who has hope for it is a fool. The struggle itself towards the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Real generosity toward the future lies in giving all to the present. Every act of rebellion expresses a nostalgia for innocence and an appeal to the essence of being. Man is the only creature that refuses to be what he is. A free press can, of course, be good or bad, but, most certainly without freedom, the press will never be anything but bad. Alas, after a certain age every man is responsible for his face. But what is happiness except the simple harmony between a man and the life he leads? Without work, all life goes rotten. But when work is soulless, life stifles and dies. It is not your paintings I like, it is your painting. We continue to shape our personality all our life. If we knew ourselves perfectly, we should die. I would rather live my life as if there is a God and die to find out there isn't, than live as if there isn't and to die to find out that there is. Nothing is more despicable than respect based on fear. You will never be happy if you continue to search for what happiness consists of. You will never live if you are looking for the meaning of life. Blessed are the hearts that can bend, they shall never be broken. Those who lack the courage will always find a philosophy to justify it. You cannot create experience. You must undergo it. Autumn is a second spring when every leaf is a flower. Friendship often ends in love, but love and friendship, never. The only real progress lies in learning to be wrong all alone. Freedom is nothing but a chance to be better. The absurd is the essential concept and the first truth. There is no love of life without despair of life. Don't wait for the last judgment. It takes place every day. The need to be right is the sign of a vulgar mind. To know oneself, one should assert oneself. Every great work makes the human face more admirable and richer, and that is its whole secret. It is necessary to fall in love, if only to provide an alibi for all the random despair you are going to feel anyway. An intellectual is someone whose mind watches itself. The welfare of the people in particular has always been the alibi of tyrants. No cause justifies the deaths of innocent people. There is no fate that cannot be surmounted by scorn. A taste for truth at any cost is a passion which spares nothing. Against eternal injustice, man must assert justice, and to protest against the universe of grief, he must create happiness. Without freedom, no art. Art lives only on the restraints it imposes on itself, and dies of all others. Charm is a way of getting the answer yes without asking a clear question. Truth, like light, blinds. Falsehood, on the contrary, is a beautiful twilight that enhances every object. We always deceive ourselves twice about the people we love, first to their advantage, then to their disadvantage. Stupidity has a knack of getting its way. Some people talk in their sleep. Lecturers talk while other people sleep. Every revolutionary ends up either by becoming an oppressor or a heretic. By definition, a government has no conscience. Sometimes it has a policy, but nothing more. We used to wonder where war lived, what it was that made it so vile. And now we realize that we know where it lives, inside ourselves. A guilty conscience needs to confess. A work of art is a confession. In order to understand the world, one has to turn away from it on occasion. It is a kind of spiritual snobbery that makes people think they can be happy without money. The society based on production is only productive, not creative. At any street corner the feeling of absurdity can strike any man in the face. No matter what cause one defends, it will suffer permanent disgrace if one resorts to blind attacks on crowds of innocent people. Violence is both unavoidable and unjustifiable. How hard, how bitter it is to become a man. Too many have dispensed with generosity in order to practice charity. I was born poor and without religion, under a happy sky, feeling harmony, not hostility, in nature. I began not by feeling torn, but in plenitude. All modern revolutions have ended in a reinforcement of the power of the state. Every man, and for stronger reasons, every artist, wants to be recognized. So do I. We call first truths those we discover after all the others. We rarely confide in those who are better than we are. The desire for possession is insatiable, to such a point that it can survive even love itself. To love, therefore, is to sterilize the person one loves. There is the good and the bad, the great and the low, the just and the unjust. I swear to you that all that will never change. Why should it be essential to love rarely in order to love much? There is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. Real nobility is based on scorn, courage, and profound indifference. One leader, one people, signifies one master and millions of slaves. Judging whether life is or is not worth living amounts to answering the fundamental question of philosophy. Heroism is accessible. Happiness is more difficult. Ah, mon cher, for anyone who is alone, without God and without a master, the weight of days is dreadful. Those who write clearly have readers. Those who write obscurely have commentators. Note, besides, that it is no more immoral to directly rob citizens than to slip indirect taxes into the price of goods that they cannot do without. It is normal to give away a little of one's life in order not to lose it all. Your successes and happiness are forgiven you only if you generously consent to share them. There will be no lasting peace either in the heart of individuals or in social customs until death is outlawed. Men are never really willing to die except for the sake of freedom. Therefore they do not believe in dying completely. Culture, the cry of men in face of their destiny. I draw from the absurd three consequences: my revolt, my liberty, my passion. Virtue cannot separate itself from reality without becoming a principle of evil. We turn toward God only to obtain the impossible. When you have really exhausted an experience, you always reverence and love it. To abandon oneself to principles is really to die, and to die for an impossible love which is the contrary of love. As a remedy to life and society, I would suggest the big city. Nowadays, it is the only desert within our means. How can sincerity be a condition of friendship? A taste for truth at any cost is a passion which spares nothing. All that I know most surely about morality and obligations I owe to football. To ensure the adoration of a theorem for any length of time, faith is not enough, a police force is needed as well. The absurd depends as much on men as on the world. For the moment, it is all that links them together. I grew up with the sea, and poverty for me was sumptuous. Then I lost the sea and found all luxuries grey and poverty unbearable. What is a rebel? A man who says no, but whose refusal does not imply a renunciation. Men are convinced of your arguments, your sincerity, and the seriousness of your efforts only by your death. I should like to be able to love my country and still love justice. Man wants to live, but it is useless to hope that this desire will dictate all his actions. I am not made for politics because I am incapable of wanting or accepting the death of the adversary. Retaliation is related to nature and instinct, not to law. Law, by definition, cannot obey the same rules as nature. In order to exist just once in the world, it is necessary never again to exist. What the world requires of the Christians is that they should continue to be Christians. Man is an idea, and a precious small idea once he turns his back on love. You have to be very rich or very poor to live without a trade. The day when I am no more than a writer, I shall cease to be a writer. Conscious of not being able to separate myself from my time, I have decided to become part of it. To be famous, in fact, one has only to kill one's landlady. I have never been able to renounce the light, the pleasure of being, and the freedom in which I grew up. Those who weep for the happy periods which they encounter in history acknowledge what they want, not the alleviation but the silencing of misery. Every time somebody speaks of my honesty, there is someone who quivers inside me. After all, every murderer when he kills runs the risk of the most dreadful of deaths, whereas those who kill him risk nothing except promotion. To govern means to pillage, as everyone knows. Martyrs, my friend, have to choose between being forgotten, mocked or used. As for being understood, never. Only a philosophy of eternity, in the world today, could justify non-violence. Rebellion cannot exist without the feeling that somewhere, in some way, you are justified. The role of the intellectual cannot be to excuse the violence of one side and condemn that of the other. The real passion of the 20th century is servitude. The myth of unlimited production brings war in its train as inevitably as clouds announce a storm. What we have done for ourselves alone dies with us. What we have done for others and the world remains and is immortal. Faith begins where reason sinks exhausted. Above all things, let us never forget that mankind constitutes one great brotherhood, all born to encounter suffering and sorrow, and therefore bound to sympathize with each other. The sovereignty of oneself over oneself is called liberty. A man should live with his superiors as he does with his fire, not too near, lest he burn, nor too far off, lest he freeze. War is a series of catastrophes which result in victory. Almost all the noblest things that have been achieved in the world have been achieved by poor men, poor scholars, poor professional men, poor artisans and artists, poor philosophers, poets, and men of genius. We have all the light we need, we just need to put it in practice. To work with the hands or brain, according to our requirements and our capacities, to do that which lies before us to do, is more honorable than rank and title. Philosophy is a kind of journey, ever learning yet never arriving at the ideal perfection of truth. The eyes of the cheerful and of the melancholy man are fixed upon the same creation, but very different are the aspects which it bears to them. One man is equivalent to all creation. One man is a world in miniature. The universal medicine for the soul is the supreme reason and absolute justice. For the mind, mathematical and practical truth. For the body, the quintessence, a combination of light and gold. Doubt, the essential preliminary of all improvement and discovery, must accompany the stages of man's onward progress. The faculty of doubting and questioning, without which those of comparison and judgment would be useless, is itself a divine prerogative of the reason. A war for a great principle ennobles a nation. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Intolerance is evidence of impotence. I can imagine myself on my deathbed, spent utterly with lust to touch the next world, like a boy asking for his first kiss from a woman. If one were to take the Bible seriously, one would go mad. But to take the Bible seriously, one must be already mad. Ordinary morality is only for ordinary people. I have never grown out of the infantile belief that the universe was made for me to suck. The people who have really made history are the martyrs. Science is always discovering odd scraps of magical wisdom and making a tremendous fuss about its cleverness. The ordinary man looking at a mountain is like an illiterate person confronted with a Greek manuscript. Part of the public horror of sexual irregularity, so-called, is due to the fact that everyone knows himself essentially guilty. To me, a book is a message from the gods to mankind, or, if not, should never be published at all. I slept with faith and found a corpse in my arms on awakening. I drank and danced all night with doubt and found her a virgin in the morning. In the absence of willpower, the most complete collection of virtues and talents is wholly worthless. The pious pretense that evil does not exist only makes it vague, enormous and menacing. Falsehood is invariably the child of fear in one form or another. Paganism is wholesome because it faces the facts of life. Chinese civilization is so systematic that wild animals have been abolished on principle. I was asked to memorize what I did not understand, and, my memory being so good, it refused to be insulted in that manner. There is no terror in the bang, only in the anticipation of it. For me, the cinema is not a slice of life, but a piece of cake. Revenge is sweet and not fattening. The more successful the villain, the more successful the picture. I never said all actors are cattle. What I said was all actors should be treated like cattle. Television has brought back murder into the home, where it belongs. Blondes make the best victims. They're like virgin snow that shows up the bloody footprints. In films, murders are always very clean. I show how difficult it is and what a messy thing it is to kill a man. I have a perfect cure for a sore throat: cut it. Disney has the best casting. If he doesn't like an actor, he just tears him up. The only way to get rid of my fears is to make films about them. The paperback is very interesting, but I find it will never replace the hardcover book. It makes a very poor doorstop. Television is like the American toaster. You push the button and the same thing pops up every time. Seeing a murder on television can help work off one's antagonisms. And if you haven't any antagonisms, the commercials will give you some. Someone once told me that every minute a murder occurs. So I don't want to waste your time. I know you want to go back to work. Some of our most exquisite murders have been domestic, performed with tenderness and simple, homey places like the kitchen table. This award is meaningful because it comes from my fellow dealers in celluloid. I'm to provide the public with beneficial shocks. The length of a film should be directly related to the endurance of the human bladder. Drama is life with the dull bits cut out. Always make the audience suffer as much as possible. In feature films, the director is God. In documentary films, God is the director. If it's a good movie, the sound could go off and the audience would still have a perfectly clear idea of what was going on. A good film is when the price of the dinner, the theater admission and the babysitter were worth it. What is drama but life with the dull bits cut out? Television is like the invention of indoor plumbing. It didn't change people's habits. It just kept them inside the house. I am a typed director. If I made Cinderella, the audience would immediately be looking for a body in the coach. There is nothing to winning, really. That is, if you happen to be blessed with a keen eye, an agile mind, and no scruples whatsoever. I'm not against the police. I'm just afraid of them. A lot of movies are about life. Mine are like a slice of cake. Give them pleasure, the same pleasure they have when they wake up from a nightmare. There is nothing quite so good as Burial at Sea. It is simple, tidy, and not very incriminating. Television has done much for psychiatry by spreading information about it, as well as contributing to the need for it. Making money is art and working is art and good business is the best art. Don't pay any attention to what they write about you. Just measure it in inches. Isn't life a series of images that change as they repeat themselves? I think having land and not ruining it is the most beautiful art that anybody could ever want to own. The most exciting attractions are between two opposites that never meet. In the future, everyone will be famous for 15 minutes. An artist is somebody who produces things that people don't need to have. Being born is like being kidnapped, and then sold into slavery. The most exciting thing is not doing it. If you fall in love with someone and never do it, it's much more exciting. I have social disease. I have to go out every night. If I stay home one night, I start spreading rumors to my dogs. I used to think that everything was just being funny, but now I don't know. I mean, how can you tell? I always wished I had died. And I still wish that, because I could have gotten the whole thing over with. My idea of a good picture is one that's in focus and of a famous person. I've decided something. Commercial things really do stink. As soon as it becomes commercial for a mass market, it really stinks. I always like to see if the art across the street is better than mine. What's great about this country is that America started the tradition where the richest consumers buy essentially the same things as the poorest. I had a lot of dates, but I decided to stay home and dye my eyebrows. If you're not trying to be real, you don't have to get it right. That's art. Dying is the most embarrassing thing that can ever happen to you, because someone's got to take care of all your details. I'm bored with that line. I never use it anymore. My new line is, in 15 minutes everybody will be famous. They always say time changes things, but you actually have to change them yourself. I'm afraid that if you look at a thing long enough, it loses all of its meaning. Being good in business is the most fascinating kind of art. Making money is art and working is art and good business is the best art. If you want to know all about, just look at the surface of my paintings and films and me, and there I am. There's nothing behind it. I never think that people die. They just go to department stores. People sometimes say the way things happen in the movies is unreal. But actually, it's the way things happen to you in life that's unreal. When I got my first television set, I stopped caring so much about having close relationships. When you think about it, department stores are kind of like museums. I love Los Angeles, and I love Hollywood. They're beautiful. Everybody's plastic, but I love plastic. I want to be plastic. I just happen to like ordinary things. When I paint them, I don't try to make them extraordinary. I just try to paint them ordinary. It would be very glamorous to be reincarnated as a great big ring on Liz Taylor's finger. I always hear myself saying, "She's a beauty," or "He's a beauty," or "What a beauty." But I never know what I'm talking about. Laugh and the world laughs with you. Snore and you sleep alone. It's always good to remember where you come from and celebrate it. To remember where you come from is part of where you're going. Life is a wretched gray Saturday, but it has to be lived through. I didn't think, I experimented. The unconscious mind has a habit of asserting itself in the afternoon. The downtrodden are the great creators of slang. Women thrive on novelty and are easy meat for the commerce of fashion. Men prefer old pipes and torn jackets. One of the delights known to age, and beyond the grasp of youth, is that of not going. Readers are plentiful, thinkers are rare. We all need money, but there are degrees of desperation. Every dogma has its day. He said it was artificial respiration, but now I find I am to have his child. To write is to become disinterested. There is a certain renunciation in art. If you believe in an unseen Christ, you will believe in the unseen Christ-like potential of others. Bath twice a day to be really clean. Once a day to be passably clean. Once a week to avoid being a public menace. The possession of a book becomes a substitute for reading it. A novelist should not be too intelligent either, although he may be permitted to be an intellectual. Life's too short to deal with other people's insecurities. The art of acting is not to act. Once you show them more, what you show them, in fact, is bad acting. My weak spot is laziness. Oh, I have a lot of weak spots: cookies, croissants. I don't have many friends. I'm very much a loner. As a child I was very isolated, and I've never been really close to anyone. Why love if losing hurts so much? I have no answers anymore, only the life I have lived. The pain now is part of the happiness then. I don't believe in nepotism. I don't much like the idea of parents who interfere. I learn poetry, learn text, and that really keeps you alive. I think a certain amount of stress in life is good. The stress of just working, which takes effort, I think it keeps you going. I've been composing music all my life, and if I'd been clever enough at school I would like to have gone to music college. I have no interest in Shakespeare and all that British nonsense. I just wanted to get famous and all the rest is hogwash. I worked with Steven Spielberg on Amistad. He seemed so very secure in himself that he let me do things. I would like to go back to Wales. I'm obsessed with my childhood and at least 3 times a week dream I am back there. I am able to play monsters well. I understand monsters. I understand madmen. I was bullied as a boy. Lots of kids are, but hopefully most of us get on with our lives and grow up. I hope I would not be so arrogant as to doubt anyone's religion or belief. My father was grounded, a very meat and potatoes man. He was a baker. Beware the tyranny of the weak. They just suck you dry. My philosophy is, it's none of my business what people say of me and think of me. I'm a pretty tough guy, you know. I'm a pretty hard man. I've got a lot of compassion, but I don't waste time with people. I have dual citizenship. It just so happens I live in America. I was called Dumbo, like the elephant, as a child because I couldn't understand things at school. I love roller coasters. I don't get a chance often, but I've gone to Magic Mountain and gone on the rides. I love roller coasters. I like the good life too much. I'm not good at going on stage night after night and on wet Wednesday afternoons. I'm married. My wife, Stella, a beautiful woman. She's brought a lot of peace to my life, a lot of wisdom. A conductor can't be too arrogant with an orchestra and try to impose himself too much. Once you begin to fall off the track and believe you breathe different air to everyone else, you're doomed, you're finished. The Welsh people have a talent for acting that one does not find in the English. The English lack heart. And I love a scary movie. It makes your toes curl and it's not you going through it. I know that the arts are important. I'm not denying that. But I can't associate myself with all the claptrap that goes on around it. Oh yes, I'm an actor, so I just learn my lines. And show up and do it. I gave it a little bit of thought. This industry has been really good to me. It's been a great life. I'm not through yet. I'm ready when you are, Mr. DeMille. I'm fascinated by the fact that we can't grasp anything about time. I am not very good with relationships. With anyone. I can't be locked up with anyone for too long. People ask, should I call you Sir Hopkins? But I say, no. Call me Tony, because it's too much of a lift up. I tend to get bored quickly, which means I must be boring. I worked at the Steel Company of Wales when I was 17. My job was to supply tools to the guys working the blast furnaces. Richard Burton came from the same town as me, so I thought I'd follow my nose, and follow my luck. I think I've been very lucky. I came here in 1974 to do a play, and then I went to LA. I really like living in America. I feel more at home here than anywhere else. I worked with Laurence Olivier some years ago. He was a great mentor. People forget that Mozart wrote for commissions. There's a thing in psychology where they think if it's popular, it can't be serious. I've got no need to prove to myself that I can do Shakespeare. I've done it. Every time I try to retire, or even think of retiring from acting, my agent comes up with a script. I'm always cast in these strange men. That's not me, really. I don't like freeloaders. I don't like people who are negative. We have a Bosendorfer piano that I play every day. It keeps my brain and my fingers active. Just remember, you can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in your pockets. The worst thing I can be is the same as everybody else. I hate that. I saw a woman wearing a sweatshirt with guess on it. I said, thyroid problem? Bodybuilding is much like any other sport. To be successful, you must dedicate yourself 100% to your training, diet and mental approach. Learned helplessness is the giving up reaction, the quitting response that follows from the belief that whatever you do doesn't matter. I think that people are interested seeing me on the screen. Politically there were failures. And also on the personal level, there were tremendous failures. I welcome and seek your ideas, but do not bring me small ideas. Bring me big ideas to match our future. No matter the nationality, no matter the religion, no matter the ethnic background, America brings out the best in people. One of my movies was called True Lies. It's what the Democrats should have called their convention. Freedom is a right ultimately defended by the sacrifice of America's servicemen and women. Gray Davis can run a dirty campaign better than anyone, but he can't run a state. Women are the engine driving the growth in California's economy. Women make California's economy unique. I told Warren if he mentions Prop 13 one more time, he has to do 500 push-ups. In our society, the women who break down barriers are those who ignore limits. I think that gay marriage should be between a man and a woman. Milk is for babies. When you grow up you have to drink beer. The future is green energy, sustainability, renewable energy. My body is like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I don't think about it, I just have it. Money doesn't make you happy. I now have $50 million, but I was just as happy when I had $48 million. The resistance that you fight physically in the gym and the resistance that you fight in life can only build a strong character. I have a private plane, but I fly commercial when I go to environmental conferences. Training gives us an outlet for suppressed energies created by stress and thus tones the spirit just as exercise conditions the body. Government's first duty and highest obligation is public safety. If you work hard and play by the rules, this country is truly open to you. You can achieve anything. I'm addicted to exercising and I have to do something every day. I do the same exercises I did 50 years ago and they still work. I eat the same food I ate 50 years ago and it still works. I just use my muscles as a conversation piece, like someone walking a cheetah down 42nd Street. I went from being the Terminator to being the Governator. Well, I think that California has had a history of always spending more money than it takes in. Teddy Roosevelt is still a hero among environmentalists for his conservationist policies. People should make up their own mind about what they think of me. The writing is important, but the way you say the line and the pause you give it, the facial expression, all of that is very important. Everything I have, my career, my success, my family, I owe to America. Even with my divorce and with everything, I don't need money. I am the most helpful and open up doors for everyone, and I like to share. We are a forward-looking people, and we must have a forward-looking government. I know a lot of athletes and models are written off as just bodies. I never felt used for my body. I came to Hollywood, and within a decade I was one of the biggest action stars of all time. For 20 years, Simon & Schuster asked me, "Why don't you write your autobiography?" To restore the trust of the people, we must reform the way the government operates. I was striving to be the most muscular man, and it got me into the movies. It got me everything that I have. I feel good because I believe I have made progress in rebuilding the people's trust in their government. I can promise you that when I go to Sacramento, I will pump up Sacramento. I have plenty of money, unlike other Hollywood celebrities or athletes that have not invested well.